Dogsthorpe Infant School is part of Hampton Academies Trust. We want every child to dream, believe, and shine.
This is your captain speaking. We've been cleared for departure.
Okay, Eddie. Start the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
This podcast is brought to you by Eddie Edster, the Dogsthorpe Infant School Wellbeing Dog.
Here we go again, folks. It's the Dogsthorpe Infant School podcast for parents, teachers and schools. I've got Eddie with me. It's Eddie's Launchpads. That's the title of the podcast. He's sitting here with me. Well, no, folks, he's fast asleep. He's always doing that. Now, I'm going to take you back, listeners. For those of you, there was a few of you who were listening to our podcast 4 years ago when we first started, and I can't remember which episode it was. You can always go back. All of them are available online through our website, which is dogsthorpeinfants.org. You can then go back through all of the episodes, and you'll be able to find the guest who is on the show today, because she's a returning guest. Lovely to talk to her again. It's Jude Lennon. Welcome to the show, Jude.
Oh, thanks so much for having me back. It's great to be visiting again.
Indeed it is. It's wonderful. And are you still in Liverpool?
I certainly am, yes.
Ah, there we are, you see. We're in Liverpool today, folks. Liverpool. Lovely. Well, it's great that you're with us. Now, you're a prolific author. You've written lots of resources for children of all different age ranges, and a little bird tells me that you've got a new book out that's not necessarily for children. So you can tell us a little bit about that a little bit later on. But can I first ask you, please, to remind our listeners, and particularly for the first time those that have joined us since you was on the show last, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jude Lennon. I grew up in Southport on the northwest coast, but now I live in Liverpool, which is a fabulous city. I love it. It's a very creative city. And I've always been passionate about books, reading, writing. You know, I always have got a nose in a book. That's just me. And that sort of spread into my career, really. I was an early years teacher for 18 years. So books were just part of my life, and encouraging children to pick up books and lose themselves in words and imagination and stories. That was just who I was. You know, it's just such an important thing. I just think if you can teach yourself to read, you can teach yourself anything. Opens the doors of the world to you, and off you go, and you can, do whatever you like. So it's a really important thing. So I'm absolutely an avid bookworm. I love reading. I just always have a book on the go, and I like a physical book, a real book that I can hold in my hand, smell the pages, turn them, and everything else. And tactile experience for me. And then I started writing. Well, my first memory of writing was tucked behind the sofa when Doctor Who was on, because there was only a limited number of channels when I was a child. And so I used to lie in that gap behind the sofa and the wall with my notebook and just write stories, because I wasn't keen on the Daleks. So that was my kind of first memory of writing. But I was always writing for the children in my class as well, stories, rhymes, jingles, the Christmas play, assemblies, etc., etc. So I was always a teacher who loved writing. And then when I came out of teaching, I became an author who loves storytelling. So I'm still very much involved in schools. I go into schools a lot and do author visits, creative writing workshops, storytelling sessions. I do lots of community events. So I recently did some stories for the VE Day celebrations, and researched some stories from people who were actually there at the time, who are still alive and have given us their memories. So yeah, that was a really exciting thing. So words, books, stories, they're all just part of who I am. Live it, breathe it.
It always amazes me when I meet people like yourself who seem to pluck stories out of out of nowhere. You know, sometimes, and for those of you who listen who struggle with perhaps you're writing a book at the moment, or you're trying to battle your way through a story, whatever age you're listening to this podcast, we all struggle. It is lovely to meet someone who says, "Oh, I saw this and that inspired me to write this," and it flows. I'm sure you have writer's block from time to time, because everybody does.
Yeah, of course. And actually, the best thing for me for writer's block is to get out in nature and get walking just around the park, or a longer walk if I've got one, if I've got time, and that really helps to sort of clear the block. But yeah, absolutely, I think the biggest thing, if you're sort of listening as a person going, "Oh, I wish I could write more easily," just don't give up, just keep going. Sometimes the words kind of splutter onto the page, and sometimes they gush like a waterfall, and you never know which it's going to be. But it's both are great. Both are great. Once the words are on the page, you can do something with them.
When you decide that it's time to do some writing, is there a particular place where you go? Have you got a study or a garden shed, or where do you go to write?
I mean, I'm in my writing room now, but actually I always write by hand first in a notebook, which means that I can write anywhere. So sometimes I'll write in the park, sometimes I will write on the beach, sometimes I will write on a bus or a train. It doesn't really matter to me. But once the story's in my notebook and then I type it up, then I do that in my writing room. But the initial ideas can come at any time. So I always have a notebook in my bag.
I remember even when I was at school, going into my local library in town near me, and seeing all this huge room at the time, because there was a lot of investment in libraries when I was young, which was a long time ago, folks. As I'm often telling you, the libraries there was a lot of money spent on libraries, and the libraries just had all these wonderful books. And what got me, Jude, was that when I'd got them home, and I was allowed about 5 or 6, I'd get them home and I'd start to read one, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder who read this last, because all those pages, as you turn those pages, you wondered, how did the person who read it before you, how did they take that character? Did they think were they thinking the same things that you were thinking? And it's more tactile, whereas now modern equipment is all very good, all of these Kindles and iPads and things are great, and you don't need to take heavy books on holiday with you, but it's not quite the same, is it?
No, and I don't even own a Kindle, actually. I'm still, if I go on holiday, I'll tend to do a book swap, whatever's there. So I'm still very much a paper book and paper notebook, but great for people who love Kindles and gives them access to books. Brilliant, go for it. However you get your books.
Absolutely. And some people, listen to audio books in the car, and that's fine. I think for us at school, we never dissuade parents from playing stories for the children, but really there's nothing better for our parents and carers to just have 5 minutes sitting with the child, either listening to the child read or reading to the child. If the child can't read yet and they're too young, sit and read a story, because that means so much to the child and to the parent, and they're precious years, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. My favourite time at school was story time. And because I was in early years, we read stories, at least twice a day. And it was just such a joyous time, because you read the stories that are the popular ones and they all join in with the joiny in bits. And then you read a new one, they're all like, oh, what's going to happen? And it's just magical. It really is.
Yeah. So there we are, listeners, wherever you're listening in the world. The next time you're tempted to just turn on the TV and play them a story that's maybe on children's YouTube or whatever, or maybe use one of the other gizmos to, I'm not going to mention their names because otherwise mine will wake up. You might want to put on something for them to, instead of doing that, which is okay, but instead of doing that, why not pick up the book, sit them down on the sofa and read to them, or say to them, can you read this to me? They're precious times. Now, talking of children's books, let's start off with the really young books, because although you've been on before to talk about them, we've picked up many more listeners since you was on last, Jude.
Yeah.
Could you talk about, first of all, particularly Little Lamb's Tales and the younger age range of books that you do?
Yeah, sure. So my storytelling mascots are Lammy and Flossie, and there's a few other lambs as well. And so a lot of my children's picture books feature the lambs. They're actually in the story, they're the characters. So there's a range, sort of like there's astronaut Lammy, pirate Lammy, Lammy goes camping, there's a Christmas collection, there's one that goes traveling around South America, there's Floga with Flossie. So it's all very sort of based around those characters. And I think it's nice for children to have characters that they can kind of go back to and sort of, I reckon I know this character. I've met them before and I know them in that book, and now they're in this book and having different adventures. And they're rhyming stories. They're all rhyming stories, and they are sort of aimed at sort of early years, lower key stage 1, I would say. But I tend to, if possible, either have some kind of action that they can do with it, or there might be a repeated refrain or something like that, and the illustrations are beautiful by Holly Bushnell. She does a brilliant job. She's working on the new book currently. So the new book is coming out in July, and it's called Lammy and the Live Bird. So obviously I'm in Liverpool, so I thought it was about time Lammy and the Live Bird had a lovely day. So in this story, the whole crew of lammies go up to join Bertie, the live bird who looks inland, and they find out all about the city and all the wonderful sights there are to see here. So it's got a real local interest for local schools and for local children, and also because the National Literacy Strategy found out that reading for pleasure is at an all-time low at the moment, which makes me feel a little bit sad. And Knowsley, which is part of Liverpool, has got some of the lowest literacy levels in the country. And I thought if you write a book that mentions your local area, children and families are more likely to read it. And I thought, hopefully, I'd like this book to sort of help children and families read for pleasure. So that was the aim of it, really. So so they're all kind of for sort of, as I said, early years, lower key stage 1. Although the live bird one, because it's got the local interest, that will be read right through primary. And then I've also done some chapter books, which I wrote with Will Hawkes, who is, well, at the time he was an autistic teenager, now he's an autistic man, and he's fully grown. He's about to graduate from university, and we worked together to write the HAL books, because when Will was learning to read, he didn't see anybody like him in books that he was reading. There was no autistic characters. And also he said he was put off by really long words and long sentences and big chapters and big books. They just made him go, ugh. So we deliberately wrote a book that had short chapters, not too complicated sentences, and wasn't too long, so that it would be easier for him and children like him to engage with it. So I've also, since was last one, I've written a novel for adults as well. So
Right.
I've gone the whole lot. So Kintsugi is a novel for adults, and it's a sort of skeletons in the closet kind of family drama. And it's been really well received, which I'm delighted about, because I never imagined I'd write for adults. I was always very firmly writing for children, but actually I love that as well, but in a different way. My passion will always be writing for children, though.
Yes, of course. And there's nothing wrong with diversifying a bit, and you never know, maybe one day Netflix or ITVX will get a hold of it, and then you'll really hit the big time, Jude. When you talked about the live bird, isn't there 2?
There are, yes. Bella is the one. She looks out over the sea to keep everybody at sea safe, and Bertie looks in over the town to keep everybody in the town safe.
That's right. I've never ever been to Liverpool. I've worked all over this beautiful country, and the people that I worked for, I kept thinking, oh, come on, send me over that way. Even just to spend a couple of days there or a weekend there, And I keep saying to Becky that maybe we should one day go over and have a look at that part of the world, because it is so rich with culture and there are so many wonderful characters there. It's just, and people talk so highly of it that I thought, we must get there. Maybe I could do what my idea will be, to get over into that area and maybe do Blackpool and Liverpool in that you know, in that same holiday. What a wonderful thing. Something for me to think about and to save up for. But the Liver Birds, yeah, I remember that when I was a boy. I remember seeing it, and when I was with the big band performing, I used to do a ferry across the Mersey.
Oh, yeah.
So they was. I've got lots of connections with Liverpool, so it's wonderful, and it's great that you've included the bird, because that's a part of the city of Liverpool and the culture that, you know, all generations will connect with that, won't they?
Yeah, very much. I mean, the Liver Birds are such a visual representation of the city. I mean, one of the football clubs, obviously, it's their logo, but you can't go anywhere in this city without seeing Liver Birds, hearing Liver Birds. They are so iconic. They really are. And yeah, and I think, you know, as a city, we're very proud of them, and
Yeah.
we're proud that they're looking over us and keeping us, you know, safe in their watch. So yeah, so it just seemed the right thing to do to involve them.
Yeah, well, there we go. You see, folks, have you never been to Liverpool? Go over to Liverpool, and maybe you never know. If you're over in that way, go and have a look at it. If I get there, Jude, one of the things I'm going to do, and I'm not even sure if it's still there now, my greatest hero in my greatest Briton who ever lived is Isambard Kingdom Brunel. The structures that he did, the mathematics that he did, the wonderful bridges and railway that he built always inspired me. And when he built one of his biggest ships, when it all fell to pieces and broke up, one of the things that was left was one of the masts.
Oh.
And they took that mast down, and the last I heard of it, Liverpool Football Club were using it as a flagpole.
Oh,
Now,
gosh.
I don't know if it's still there,
I don't.
but I remember that, and I kept thinking to myself, one of these days. So you see, that's another place for me to visit. Sadly, I don't support Liverpool Football Club, but I'm going to go because I want to see that flagpole if it's still there, because it's another connection back to my hero of all time, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. And anyway, with the surname Lennon, you ought to come from Liverpool. Any relation?
Yes, actually.
Really?
Yeah, we only found out relatively recently. We always believed it was a bit of a family sort of like legend, like, and everyone was like, yeah, whatever, because there's a lot of Lennons in the northwest area. Obviously, it's proximity to Ireland. You know, a lot of people came over, and then my dad's sisters both married Welshmen and ended up living in South Wales, and they're in a rambling group. And one, as you know, when you ramble with your feet, but you ramble with your words as well. You blah, 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 but you all chat away. And one of the ramblers was a very keen sort of genealogist, and he said, "Oh, you know, so you were Lennons before you got married. Any relation?" They said, "Well, we think it's family legend." And he said, "I'd love to do the research." And they said, "Okay." And he came back and he said, "Yeah, you are actually related."
Wow.
So, John Lennon's grandfather and my dad's grandfather were brothers.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
It's not changed my life, but
Well, no, but I mean, you know, the thing is, I mean, what an incredible gifted guy he was, and it's nice to have a little connection with him. So, and all the while you're carrying that surname. Okay, you mentioned a lot of books. I know your latest one isn't just out yet, and we're hoping it's going to be
Jude,
out. Where are the best
important
places to go to buy these fantastic books?
Yeah, well, they're all available on my website, so littlelambpublishing.co.uk. They are available on the Big Long River, and although that is obviously a big platform, I do prefer if people can support local independent bookshops as well. So it is stocked in some local independent bookshops in Liverpool as well. But you know, you can just most Waterstones, if you go in and ask for them, they will be able to order them in as well, or big bookshops. So yeah, but they are available. I mean, we have to accept that the big online river is a big portal, but I would much prefer people shop independently if they're able to, if it's possible, if it's, you know.
And those little bookshops, or even the bigger bookshops like Waterstones, there's an ambience about those sorts of places that you walk in. You know, there's whether it's carpet or wooded floors, it doesn't matter. But you walk in there and you look at all the books, and there's this sense, there's this ambience of peace and calm, whereas when you're looking on Amazon, okay, there's the reviews, but it's all very cold and stark, and you're sitting on a sofa at home. It's not like actually going there. And if they've got a coffee shop in there and you've got the smell of the coffee as well, it's really a nice thing to go to a local bookshop, isn't it?
Yeah, and also the staff who work in the local independent bookshops, they are so knowledgeable. There's Bob Stone in Right Blend, who's local to me here, and he is what we call affectionately the book wizard, because he would suggest books for you if you say, well, I like this author, who else have you got? And also he's a big champion of independent authors, so you might find a book or an author who we wouldn't normally find on the bookshelves of a bigger bookshop, and he'll be able to sort of direct you, I think you'd really enjoy this, or I think you'd like this. And his knowledge is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, so they're little gems, our little bookshops. They really are.
Absolutely.
You should cherish them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, folks, don't worry if you missed any of those details. It's all going to be in the text of the podcast. So when you finish listening to this recording, just click on the podcast itself. The text will open up, and you're just one click away from Jude's website and fabulous books. Jude, thank you for your time today. When you get new books out, don't be a stranger. Just because you've been on twice, there's no limit. We're always happy to have you back on and to see old friends. And when I say old friends, I mean that in a very, very friendliest way possible.
I know.
I can't say anything. I'm an old dinosaur.
No, thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure. I've had such a lovely time to chat with you, and I think it's so great that you've did this podcast to sort of really spread the word about the joy and the importance of books, because they really are. They're little pieces of magic.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, we'll be back next week with another author, and stay close to those launch pads.
You have been listening to the Dogsthorpe Infant School podcast. Join Captain Dave and his co-pilot Eddie Edster, the well-being dog, on another launch pad soon. Until then, always remember to be kind, be respectful, and most of all, dream, believe, and shine. Dogsthorpe Infant School is part of Hampton Academies Trust.